gik mig at spacere en sildig aftenstund. Der mødte jeg en kæmpe så hæselig og grum. Hans tale den var hård og sinde. Jeg tykkes at han mig vil overvinde. Og hør nu, Svend Nordmand, hvad jeg vil sige dig. 10 spørgsmål skal du nu besvare mig. Og enten vil du døden modtage, eller det vil gå dig vel i dine dage.
Okay, today we are here with Mr. Hένρι Holm, one of my uncles from my father's side, and I knew him since I was a little boy, and we all knew that he was from Denmark, and I was always very curious about the country whenever I would hear about it. And we're here with him today, so I asked him if he would tell me about what his upbringing was like, what Denmark was like, what he remembers, and about his travels also throughout the world with his job, and his life story. Mr. Hένrι Holm, you may proceed. Tell me, where were you born, and what year, and who your parents were?
Yeah, I was born in 1932, actually the 8th of December, in something called Baslev, which is a little bit west of a small town called Hvidbjerg, which really means White Mountain in English, and it's probably called that because it was built on a very small lime hill. So, as I said, I was born in Baslev. My father was a teacher there in a small school. In those days they had many small schools in each district. So the children wouldn't have to drive or walk or ride a bike more than about 3 or 4 miles maximum. So that's where I was born, and my father was the second teacher there. There was one other teacher, and he and his wife became my godchildren, actually. Of course, I don't remember anything from there because my father was transferred to another school a little north of Hvidbjerg again. And that's where I can start to remember things. My father was the only teacher there, and there were only 2 classes, one for the smaller kids, I think 7 to about 9 years, and another one from the bigger kids from 10 to 14 years. How my father managed to teach both of them at the same time, I don't know. Probably the bigger kids would help teaching the little ones or something like that. I don't know. My mother also sometimes worked a little bit with the girls. She would teach them needlework, and she would bring me into the classroom with her. I remember especially one girl I thought was very brave because she could kill bees and wasp with her bare hands. So I thought that was quite brave.
What was her name? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it was Esther.
Esther.
Which was similar to my mother. So, Yeah, he had a second name too, which I don't remember. I think that was Hedwig,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure. Anyway, my father also was a lead singer in the church for a while, and my mother would sometimes play the organ there because he was an accomplished organist. In fact, most of my mother's family played some kind of instrument. So when we visited one of my uncles and aunts who lived about 20 miles from us, there was often a lot of music. My father and my uncle would play violins. My mother would play the organ, and my aunt would play piano. And when we knew the songs, we would sing along a little bit.
Did you ever learn to play an instrument?
Yes, I tried to learn the violin, but I didn't succeed. But I played piano for a little while and organ for a while over here. I'm getting too old for it now. But
Did your brothers and sisters play also?
no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. They played all kinds of songs, some religious songs and songs about country and nature and many others. It was, people in Denmark did sing a lot, and we even had song lessons in school a couple of hours every week.
What was one of your favorite songs that you used to like to listen to or sing?
Yeah. I can't remember. I've learned too many new songs over here, so I think it's in those days you were kind of happy about the country you lived in, so we had a lot of songs that I liked about the country.
Mm-hmm.
The national song is Jeg elsker de grønne lunde, which means, translated to English, I love the green woods, I guess.
Nice, yes.
And then it goes on from there, of course. Life was pretty primitive then, though. In the schoolhouse we lived in, just north of town, we had no running water, just a pump in the yard. So we had to pump water out of that and bring it into the house. And when we needed a bath, which wasn't too often because it was hot, especially in the winter time, but you had to pump water up first and then bring it in and heat it in a huge kettle. It could probably hold, I don't know, 10, 15 gallons of water. And you could light a fire on it with using either coal or peat or wood or whatever. You heat it up and then pour the water into a bathtub, metal bathtub. And of course we were 3 children. My sister Kirsten, which is the youngest, and my brother Valdemar, which is the middle one, about 4 years old, younger than me. So Kirsten would go in the bathtub first, then Valdemar, and then me, all 3 in the same water, of course. By the time I was starting school, they had built a central school in town. So although we still lived at the old schoolhouse, I had to walk or ride a bike for about a mile, I think, to get to the school, to the new school. But that was rather modern for the time. They had showers, so we had physical exercise twice a week, and we could get showers in there, so that made it a lot easier. We didn't have to bath at home. After about a year, we moved to another old school in town, so I only had to walk less than a quarter mile, I think, to get to school. Unfortunately, though, the German had occupied the country by this time, so after a while they took over the school, first part of it, but after a while all of the school. So they had to put the old school houses into service again, and use all various other. I think they even used the church for a while.
Did the soldiers come to the village? Do you remember?
Yeah, they. To begin with, there were only soldiers in the school, but after a while, I think when the bombing raids started in Germany, people started to leave Germany, and they came up there, and they were housed in the school, some of them, as well as the soldiers.
So you had some teachers that were German soldiers.
No. We could not go to the school.
You could not.
Simply took over the
They
school.
They took over.
So
okay.
we had to go to some of the old school.
Yes.
School buildings.
Right.
Yeah,
I remember now.
And also the church, I think, and another hall we had in town were used for schools. What else? Yeah, after a while we moved from, I guess I said that, we moved to a school, an old school in town. And while we were there, both my brother and I spent a lot of time on neighboring farms.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you had some pets also in the house. You had a cat?
We only had a cat. We really wanted badly a dog, but we were only allowed a cat.
And there was a dog nearby.
Yeah.
You said
on the one of the farms that I went to, and Valdemar also went to, and the dog was so happy when we came because we were nice to it. The farmer was pretty mean. He would whip the dog sometimes when it didn't do what he expected it to do.
What was the dog's name?
Ralph, I think. R-A-L-F.
All right.
So,
and you said when you were little you rode a tractor too.
Yeah, that was on the same farm. And that's what I guess I was saying. You would never be able to do that today. Because I think I was only 12 years old. And one time I almost got into trouble because I was plowing, I think, a field. And they had a pretty steep hill. So going up the hill, the tractor started lifting the front wheels. So I had to stop it and get off and detach the plow and then get the tractor going again. And then I went down the hill and pulled the plow backwards down the hill. So, but something bad could have happened, you think, with a little kid like that riding a tractor. It was kind of crazy.
It was an adventure.
Yeah.
What type of crops did you guys plant?
In those days, oats, barley, and some rye. But the country was normally too cold. You couldn't go. Some people did grow wheat, but it was not very good wheat. You couldn't make it for bread, but they could use it for cattle feed.
And what did you make from those crops? Were you able to make other things?
They mostly used it for feed, cattle feed.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the oats you used, of course, for oatmeal and stuff, and barley too, I think, and the rye. Oh yeah, and you made rye bread. which is kind of a dark, hard bread, which I still like, and you can get it here now. So sometimes I buy it.
What is it called?
R-Y-E bread.
Rye bread.
Yeah.
And yeah, you also mentioned that in the winters you guys would go ice skating.
Yes.
That a pond would freeze.
Yeah.
And
in fact, even the ocean would freeze over sometimes. I think I mentioned that too. So you could, in fact, drive cars between the mainland and the islands and the islands and Germany. So, and that was, to Germany especially, was probably close to 100 miles or so.
100 miles of ice.
No, that's not right either. No, it was less than 50.
Less than 50.
Yeah. And the sounds between the islands and the mainland were not very, very far at all.
And you mentioned you would go ice skating too.
Yes. Initially I had an old pair of skates that somebody gave to me, I think. But one of them had a broken binding on the backside, so I could tie it down with a rope or something and keep it on, but it wasn't very good. Later on, though, I could afford to buy my own skates, and so it was nice. And
eventually, you said a company recruited you, right? When you in high school.
When I finished school, the first job I had was for the customs department as a trainee in a town near home. But I didn't like that at all, and my relatives kept joking, telling me that customers working for the customs office was not a real job. It was not something that honest people should do. So I thought I had found a job as an apprentice. I was always interested in radios and stuff, so I thought I had found a job as an apprentice with one of the radio shops in town. So I quit the customs department, and just as I was going to start with this radio guy, he went broke. So for a little while I worked in a bakery as a helper there, delivering bread and cleaning stuff and what. But with the help of the guy who went broke, I found another apprenticeship in a town quite a long ways from home, actually on the main island, Sealand. So it was a good couple of 100 miles from home. So I wasn't too happy, and my parents weren't too happy to have me go that far away so young. But I still did it, and served there 5 years as an apprentice. And after that apprenticeship was finished and I got my papers, I had to go, you had compulsory military service in Denmark in those days, so I had to go, and I spent 18 months, I think.
In any particular branch or field of the military?
Well, yeah, first I went basic training for about 3 months, but then I went in the Signal Corps. So I went away to Copenhagen for training for a while, and then went back to Tisted, where I had served my initial 3 months, which was again, and that's strange because I went to, I worked far away from home, but when I joined the military, they sent me back to only about 20 miles from home, And that's where I served the first 3 months, and then after I finished the training in Copenhagen, I was sent back there and served the rest of my time there. But while in the military, it was that I met my friend Egon and promised him to go away to Canada. So after we finished with the military, I worked for a service tech at a factory in Copenhagen for a little while, for 5 months I think, and then we left both for Canada. And we went on a maiden voyage with the new ship that the Swedish American Line had bought, or built, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So coming into New York was really a beautiful sight, because the fireboats were all out and sprayed water
In an ark? This?
in New York. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that was really something. I enjoyed that.
Were you able to see the Statue of Liberty
Yes.
also?
Yeah, we did that. And then I am not sure what key we went to in New York. It wasn't Ellis Island anymore. They had already
Mm-hmm.
started using other jetties. But I remember the customs officer, or immigration officer, or whatever it was, there had actually been in Denmark for a while, and he knew Copenhagen, so we talked with him for a while, and he was very friendly. And my friend had a big trunk, so he said, keep an eye on that and make sure when you get on the bus that follows you all the way up to Calgary, where we were going. So we kept a close eye on the trunk all the way up, and all the other cases ended up in some U.S. city on the west coast. But the trunk stayed with us and got all the way to Standard to Calgary. We got the other suitcases back after a while, but it didn't take very long actually.
Mm-hmm. And what exactly did you do in your job in the radio? You said you worked.
Yeah, but then when we came to Canada, again we had to take on whatever we could get to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked on the Trans-Canada pipeline for a while, making weights to keep the pipes down.
Mm-hmm.
That was down in east, near Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
I think. We were working for a while, and near the Great Lakes too. My friend Egan quit first, and I stayed on for a little while because we were making real good money there, lots of overtime. We were working 12 hours a day and pretty good pay. But eventually I went back too and stopped in Winnipeg for a while and looked for a job there, and actually got a job for a little while, for a couple of weeks, for working as a tech in a radio shop for a taxi company there. But there was also a Hungarian, and actually that was right after the revolution in Hungary, so there were lots and lots of Hungarians in Canada, which is why immigrants weren't really that popular. They called us all Dagos, and they thinking we were all from Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
Dago is really a term they applied to Italians, I think. But so there was a Hungarian tech working at the same time, and the taxi company was trying to find out which one of us should stay. So I quit and told them to give it to this other Hungarian, because I thought he needed the job more than I did. And they said, well, that was too bad, because they really had wanted me, I think. But so I wanted to go out to Calgary again anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked for a little while there building houses with a carpenter, but only for a few weeks again. And then I got a job with Litinsky Radio and TV in Calgary. And my friend Egon got a job with an oil exploration company, a seismic company, and went up north. He kept talking to me about all the money he was making and how fun it was up there, and so I finally quit my job at Litinsky and applied or got a job as a junior observer with this seismic company. So I was there for about a month, I think, as a junior observer, but then the observer, and he's the one who runs the instruments, quit because he was from Texas and he could not stand the cold. So they were hard up to find another one, so they let me work it for a while, and it went well. So after a while, I became the observer, and it wasn't really for me not that difficult because I had the technical training from being a radio technician, and the instruments were similar. They were using vacuum tubes in those days. So it was quite easy for me. So after a couple of years, my friend Egon went back to Denmark, but I kept working for almost 4 years for this company that was called Geophysical Associates International. It was really a Houston company, but they had a division in Canada.
What was your friend's last name?
Jensen. So then after 4 years, I finally quit that job and went back to Denmark. But I intended to stay there. But then the company called a little while later and asked me if I could go to Greece and Turkey. And I thought that sounded pretty interesting, especially Greece was. So I said yes, of course I could. Again, I thought I would go for a couple of years and then come back to stay. So we worked in Greece to begin with, in Thessalonica, Salonika. Our head office was in Athens, so, and we also worked down on Zakynthos and Peloponnes, and up at Arta. And of course in Greece was where I met Sofia, my wife, my lovely wife. She was quite beautiful. To begin with, though, we could get only 3 months visa to stay in Greece, and then we had to leave and we could come back in right away and get a new visa for another 3 months. I don't know why they couldn't just make it 6 months, but they couldn't. So our party chief had the bright idea that we could just dive up to the border with Yugoslavia, walk across into Yugoslavia and turn around and walk back to Greece and get a new visa. So he got us an 7-day visa, I think, to Yugoslavia, and we drove up and then we all walked across. But then when we tried to get back, the immigration officer said, in Yugoslavia, said, "Oh no, you got a 7-day visa, so you have to stay for 7 days." We talked some more, and they finally let the party chief go back so he could drive the jeep back to Salonika. And they told us we could walk up to 7 kilometers to a town and get a hotel there. But when we got to town, we found out there was a train going back to Salonika, to Greece. So we bought tickets and got on the train, and there was no problem at the border with neither the Yugoslav or the Greek authorities. So we got our new visas, and it all turned out good. What else happened in Greece?
Were you there during the Civil Wars? Civil Wars?
No, they were finished by that time.
What year was that when you went to Greece? What year?
1960. 60, I think. It must have been because I got married in December of 1961.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? I can't see anymore. Yeah, June of 1960.
Mm-hmm. Was the king and queen of Greece still there?
No, they had just been
Gotten rid of?
gotten rid of too. I think. What was he? Prince Constantine married and went to Denmark, didn't he? For a while,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Didn't he marry a Danish girl or something? Yeah, I think he did.
I wanted to ask you, just going back to when you were younger. Do you remember your grandparents?
Yes. Yeah. On my father's side, my grandfather was a what do you call it, custodian for a church, and I remember we used to go with him. He had to ring the sun up and down, so early morning, about 6 o'clock, he had to go and pull the rope to ring the big bell on the church.
What was his name?
Anton.
And from your father's side, Anton Holm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what was my one? Marie, I think. Yeah.
Maria. Mm-hmm.
Maria. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And on my mother's side, my grandmother died early, and I don't remember her well, and I don't remember her name. But my grandfather on my mother's side was Mass.
Well, that was his.
Mass, M-A-D-S, yeah.
That was his first name.
Yeah.
And what was your mother's maiden name? His last name.
It's Olga Madsen. Yeah, he was Madsen.
Messen.
M-A-D-S-E-N. Yeah.
Madsen. And,
but he was also called Nygård, because his farm was called, which means new farm, was called Nygård. So, and some of my uncles on my mother's side adopted that name, so they were called Nygård instead of Madsen.
And your father was, how many brothers and sisters was he?
He had 3 sisters, I know that. And how many brothers? He had 3 brothers, I think.
3 brothers also.
4 brothers, but one died early.
Mm-hmm.
But his youngest brother is still alive. His name is Helge, and I write to him every Christmas or so.
Your uncle?
Yeah.
He must be...
Yeah, he's up in the 90s, I think. He's 90.
Mm-hmm.
But it's strange because my father's family, sisters, either died very early from cancer, or they lived to be well into the 90s. One of my aunts was 94, I think, and she was still riding her bike when she was over 90. Not the last couple of years, I think. She was in a nursing home. But, so.
And your mother, how many children was your mother?
Again, one brother died early. Actually, 2. One brother and one sister died early. But alive once he had 1, 2, 3 brothers and 1 sister. So she must have had 6 siblings to begin with. And one of my uncles had a talking firm. Actually, most of the time he had 1 talk. When his son grew up, he had 2 hauling stuff.
A what? A firm?
Talking. T-I, no, talking, big.
Trucking firm, trucking.
Yeah.
Okay, trucking firm. Mm-hmm.
And during the war he had a lot of problems because he refused to dive for the Germans,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which he was supposed to. So they finally took his truck
His trucks.
away, and he got them back after the war, but they were in bad shape because they would, if they wouldn't start, they would tie a whole bunch of them together and have 1 truck pulling them all, and so they bumped into one another. My other uncle, the one that I told about the music thing,
What was his name?
he was Jens.
Mm-hmm.
Jens Madsen, or Jens Nygaard Madsen, I think he called himself. He had a farm, so,
Mm-hmm.
and had 2 kids, so I had 2 cousins there. And the other one with the talks had 3 kids, so I had 3 cousins there.
What was his name?
Christian.
Christian. Mm-hmm.
Christian Madsen.
And what was your mother like? What was she like?
Well, I thought, of course, she was nice.
Mm-hmm.
She was pretty well educated, but she didn't hold a job except for
Mm-hmm.
playing the organ in the church sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you about her helping my father
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
with the girls. And but other than that, she did a lot of volunteer work for the church. And
The church was.
it was a Protestant church,
Mm-hmm.
which is a state church in Denmark,
Yes.
similar to the way
Orthodox.
the Orthodox is in Greece, yeah. But the state did support various other churches, like
Mhm.
the Catholic and the Jews, I think.
Mm-hmm. What was your father like?
He was strict. He was
Strict?
a disciplinarian. He probably wouldn't do as a teacher today because he was very strict.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one day too, when I was a little kid, I was sent down to buy some bread, and I got a coin, 2 crown, to buy the bread from the baker.
Mm-hmm.
And it so happened that I lost it on the way down. So I looked for a while and I couldn't find it, so I went back home and said I lost the money, and my father said he probably thought I had stolen it or would need it for something else, but he said, "Oh, you go and find it, or you don't come back till you found it." So I went and looked and walked forth and back, and I went back home again and tried to get to my mother, but my father caught me and he said, "I told you, you don't come home unless you have found that coin again." So I didn't know what to do. I sat down and prayed with all my heart, dear God, let me find this coin so I can come home. So I went down and there it was. I found it right away. So I went back home happy. No, I went to buy the bread and went back home happy. But I'm sure my father still, and I forgot to tell him. I should have told him after I grew up that I really did lose that coin, but I'm sure he still thought till his dying day that I had stolen it or tried to steal it.
That's a nice story. That's a very
Yeah.
nice story. So you got married in Greece.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a while we went back to Denmark, and Sofia was really fitting in quite well.
Mm-hmm.
She was learning Danish, taking Danish lessons, and found a job and was working for a while. She quit that though after a while. But when we first came there, I had made a big mistake because I had saved a lot of money and some money, and was worth a lot in Denmark. So I tried to open up an agency, and I got various products, but one of them they couldn't deliver, and they were really bad people because they got after me and said that I had to pay anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't deliver the product, but I ended up having to pay them.
Mm-hmm.
So I lost all my money and some. So then I got a job with Danfoss, which is a big Danish manufacturer of control boxes and things, electronic stuff. And I was happy there, and I would like to stay there, but I had to pay back the money I still owed. So that's why when they called again to ask if we wanted to go to Australia, I said yes, because then I could make more money and pay off my debt quite quickly. So then we went on to Australia and were there for 7 years. And we started out in Western Australia, in Perth, and I worked for a while up near Kalgoorlie, which is there was Warburton Mission, I think it was called.
Mm-hmm.
We were working at seismic crew out there in the desert, and that was hot. It was a terrible place to work. But we finished that contract pretty soon, and then we stayed in Perth for a while, and that was kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
We had, in fact, we had a little dog there, Australian, what was it called? Australian Shepherd, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very intelligent dog, and it was young. It was also nice and quiet to begin with. I remember we had a couch, and it would line up way back from the couch and take a run and try to and miss and couldn't quite get up. But finally one day it made it. It got up on the couch where we were sitting, so it was very happy. It wasn't noisy neither until I, stupidly enough, we were in apartments on the second floor, so there was a whole row of them, and somebody walked down on the outside, and I went down on my knees and go, whoa, 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 whoa. So after that the dog barked every time there was somebody out there, so I shouldn't have done that. A little later we were transferred to Brisbane though.
Mm-hmm.
So again, sometimes I worked in town, and often I worked out in Western Queensland and even up near Alice Springs in the centre of Australia. Again, it was in the summer. It was hot there, some 122 degrees Fahrenheit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that is Celsius anymore.
What was your favorite dish that your mother used to cook for you? What did you like to eat?
She used to make a cake of biscuits and chocolate, which I really liked. That was good. And she would, even when I worked in Denmark, a long ways away from home, sometimes she would send me one of those, and I would eat it. I can still remember that. I wish I had gotten the recipe how to make it, but I didn't. So now it's too late.
And what was? Yeah, go ahead.
Then we worked in Australia for 6-7 years or so, I think. then they shut down there, and we were transferred to Houston, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And we were there for about a year, I guess. And then things got really bad here in the oil business too.
Mm-hmm.
So the company shut down the Houston operation. We were offered to move up here to Massachusetts, to Waltham.
Mm-hmm.
But also two other co-workers decided to form their own company, and they bought all the equipment in Australia and Singapore. So they asked us, if me and another guy, if we would join them. So we did, and got a small share in the company.
And second here. We were talking about where you had just moved to Singapore.
Yeah. Well, actually, we moved to Australia first, and I was supposed to. Yeah, I guess I said that I was supposed to be in Australia with Campbell and Mr. Hickey and Brian Cohen, the other two partners. They were supposed to be in Singapore, but they pulled a dirty one on me, asking if I would go to Singapore and do one job, which I agreed to, of course. But when we finished that job, that was out on a boat in Thailand, I think. When we finished that and came back to Singapore, my wife Sofia was there to and with the two children, and they had moved her up there and told her that I wanted to stay in Singapore, and I was under the impression that we were going back to I was going back to Australia, and they would still stay, and they would all stay there. But anyway, we were stuck in Singapore, so we were in Singapore for the next again a little over 6 years.
What was Singapore like?
Well, it wasn't too bad, but I didn't like the climate there because it was the same all year round. It is even temperature, always hot and humid. It may be a couple of degrees cooler in the monsoon season, but yeah, it was too hot. But other than that, it was a nice city. I couldn't complain too much. But of course, again, I spent a lot of time on boats away from home, in Thailand, in Brunei especially. We did a lot of work for Shell in Brunei, a lot of survey for Shell. The Japanese during the war had taken over all the oil refineries and all the oil fields in Brunei. So when Shell came back after the war, they had to map all the pipelines again, and we were doing a lot of that work.
What was your favorite Greek food?
Either baklava,
The pastry?
The pastries were good, but also the stuffed grape leaves were excellent. And I think I mentioned that the meatballs in the kind of lemon sauce.
Yeah.
What is that called?
The avgolemono with how do you avgolemono with keftedes? No, not keftedes. How do you say meatballs? Now I can't remember.
Yeah. Okay. But
yeah.
And I even got used to the Retsina wine once in a while. That took some getting used to.
When was the first time you went to Amorgos?
I don't remember. Huh. It must have been when we were in Australia the first time. So When was that? I should have it here. Okay, it must have been in the 70s sometime.
And you remember
late 70s, I think.
And you remember taking a ship?
Yeah.
To the shore.
Yes, and going on the little boats to get into Amorgos, and then ride the donkey, for me the mule, up to the house in the village. Yeah, I remember that very well. And Tony had at that time the taverna, so we were up there quite a bit. And I tried to follow Tassia around the island sometimes, or there was a little chapel up on a hill. And we went up there and we went up on the hills quite a bit. But I ran out of air before he could run up and down like nothing. So, what was it? We spent about 7 years in Singapore, and then we were transferred back to, where do I have it? To Massachusetts, here to Massachusetts, and we were here for a couple of years. But then he had also joined. Let me backtrack a little bit again. While we were in Singapore, we ran our own company for a little over 3 years, but then we sold it back to ED&G again, which is outfit here out of Wellesley. So after about 7 years, they shut down the Singapore operation and transferred me back here to Massachusetts. So I worked in Waltham for a while. But then in '81, they had also meanwhile bought a seismic company in Australia, and Frank Hickey, one of the previous partners with our own company, was in charge over there. So their chief engineer quit, and they were in bad shape to get a technician over there. So this Mr. Hickey called me and asked if I would please come to Australia. So I was transferred. We were transferred back to Australia again in 1981, and worked as chief engineer till '83, and that's when things slowed down in Australia again. That's the way the oil business has always been, up and down, up and down. So then I was transferred back to here again, and moved back into this house. But that's when Sofia and Tina stayed behind. They were going to come later, I thought. Then Sofia eventually sent Tina over here, but she stayed and remarried in Australia, which is a shame, but that's life, I guess.
Out of all the places that you worked, which place did you find most interesting, or that you enjoyed the most from your travels?
Most interesting was probably Greece, but what I most enjoyed was New Zealand, I think.
New Zealand, yeah.
It was very nice, and very nice people there.
How long did you spend in New Zealand?
4 months, I think.
4 months.
So, yeah, not nearly long enough. We were that was when we were in Australia. We were just doing a job over there. The Sofia and Tony and Tina went along with me, and we had a little flat there.
A little flat?
Yeah,
The car? With the...
No.
Oh, a little
it's an
house.
apartment.
Yeah, an apartment.
I'm sorry, I was
No,
speaking
no.
Australian again.
What?
And we rented a car for Sofia over there too.
Mm-hmm.
She was well looked after. Yeah, New Zealand was very nice. While we were in Singapore, I did one job in New Zealand too, offshore, on the other side. There, what's that mountain called? Again, that slipped my mind too. But anyway, it was nice too. So.
Did you play sports when you were little?
Yeah, soccer.
Soccer?
And in winter, of course, we couldn't play soccer, so we had gymnastics.
Gymnastics, yeah. And did you have a favorite soccer team there in Denmark, or?
We weren't so much into professional football at that time. That came after the war, but that was almost the time when I was leaving. So, well, when that came about. But I do remember after the war, Denmark did very well in soccer with the Olympics. Since then they haven't done well, but so no, I was not ever too much interested in professional sports. A little bit here, but yeah, I forgot to say, of course, when we were while in Australia, Tony and Tina, our two children, were Australians. Tony was born when I don't know. I can't find it. That's May 1467 at the General Hospital in Brisbane. And Tina then was born February 18th, 1969, also at the same hospital.
Almost my birthday.
Oh yeah, when is yours?
17th, February 17th.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's close. Yeah. So.
That's great. That was a big adventure from Denmark, from small town Denmark to traveling the world.
Yeah, I never intended to do all this. When I finished my apprenticeship, I thought I was gonna go do my military service and then come out and get a job and study at night to become an engineer. And you could do that at that time. In Denmark, it was only about 4 years, I think. So, but yeah, even when I went to Canada, I expected to come back and finish my education. But that was not to be. The only thing I regret about my job is being away from family so often. I guess you don't always appreciate the.
No, until
it's too late.
It happens. A lot of the good-paying jobs sometimes require travel.
Yeah.
You know.
Even and I also thought it was interesting at the time, but I regret now spending so little, not enough time with my wife and kids. And I'm really pleased that Tony and Tina have both grown up so well and that they do so well. It's probably more than I deserve.
No, you did a great job. And you had nephews that didn't know you that well, but we always heard about you. you know, and we saw pictures of you, and we, you know, when we talked about family, you were talked about like you were one of us. So, you know, my mother knew you, my father, you know, and even today, you know, I'm gonna and talk and tell me who is who, and yes.
Well, you probably know most of these people. Mm-hmm. This was, I think, from our wedding in Athens. It's in Athens anyway. Mm-hmm. I don't know who that is, but of course, that's me and Sofia. Mm-hmm. And this is from our wedding.
Mm-hmm. This is Yanni. This is Yanni.
Yeah. And I don't know if you can tell anyone else.
Very pretty photos.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Tina and Tony. A little while ago. Mm-hmm. And that must be
this Beachport.
Tina and we
69.
We just got there, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was in Australia, and we were down in Beachport for a while, which is South Australia, with Sofia and Tony. And that was when we got Tina then. So. And maybe that's... And that, of course, is Tina, her mother, and Tony. And, we lived in a house out at Holland Village at that time in Singapore. But we moved after a while because while we were away one night, there was a car hit our gates, and they had fallen down. And a few nights later, somebody broke into our house while we were asleep and stole all my money, my credit cards and stuff. And so after that, Sofia wanted us to move out of the house and move into a flat, an apartment in town. Naturally, I was happy to do that too. And that's Mother and Tina.
Who's that? I see Sofia and the girl.
Yeah, it must be Tina.
Oh, it's black and white. This is somebody. Okay.
And some of these I don't know. I don't know what.
This is you and Tony. Looks like at the Acropolis.
Okay.
This is in Athens. September 74.
Yeah. No, we must have made a trip to Europe then. We did go back to Greece because it wasn't too hard. In one case from Singapore actually, because management, the Olympic Airways.
Oh, well, yeah.
He got us first class tickets to Europe one time from Singapore, so that was nice.
Awesome. From Olympic, first class.
Actually, you had to fly first class on Olympic because tourist class was terrible. The Greeks, they used the toilets, but they were plugged up after a while, and
they used to smoke on there too, right?
Smoke, yeah. So, first class was nice, though. I don't know where this is.
74.
That must be Bybee Island, I think. No.
That looks like Amorgos.
74.
Right here.
Yeah.
Nikuria Island.
Yeah.
This is Agialis.
So that must have been one of our trips.
Yeah.
And I don't know who they are. They're probably just
That looks
Just
like
sailors.
this is Syntagma Square in Athens
Yeah.
with the pigeons,
Oh, yeah.
with the changing of the guard.
Yeah. Huh. Is that Singapore? Maybe that's,
September 74.
I don't know. They don't look like so. Hey.
Tony.
Of course, that's Tony and a lot of Tonys. And Tina. October 70.
7, whatever that's.
Oh yeah. Tony and Tina.
Yeah.
I don't know where the other ones are. Tina. Yeah, that was our organ.
Yeah, I remember.
We actually still have that down in the basement, but it's not working too
There's
well
a nice
anymore.
picture of this one.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my uncle Christian on my mother's
Christian.
side.
Christian.
He was the one with the talks,
Mm-hmm.
and his oldest boy. And that must, is that Tony?
Yeah, looks like Tony. Mm-hmm.
And 76 June.
Very nice.
Again.
There you are.
Yeah.
Garcia's son.
Okay. And I think that's the dog we had in Singapore. Maybe.
Let me see if I can get. I'm gonna send this one photo to Yanni if I can.
Yeah.
Let me see if I'm in the dark too much here.
You need to move it, we can.
That's good. Let me see if I can. I think I got enough. Let me see. How do you like it? Nice.
Singapore.
The second dog.
We had one first, a small Chihuahua, and Tony was playing with it, or it was playing with Tony, and it ran into something one day and broke its neck.
Oh.
So Tony was very unhappy. But then Sofia got another bigger, stronger one. So our house, the way it looked, when you were here, I think,
yeah.
you would have been able to know where you were then. But this was up in New Hampshire. I took Tony for a trip up there. While we were in Greece, the Greeks and Turks didn't like one another either that time. And one time we were in Athens and we were driving around, and we still had anchor license plates on the Jeep. So coming out of a parking lot, we hit another car a little bit. We bent this bumper, but it was one of the old style bumpers, so it was pretty light. So immediately a crowd came up, and the car driver, the car owner, started shouting at us, and luckily enough for us, a policeman came up, and he wanted to take us over to Turkish Airlines, so they could translate. But one of the other people with me kept trying to show him his passport, and that was a Canadian passport, and finally he succeeded, and the policeman saw the passport and he said, "Oh, Canadas. So he told all the other people to just
go
away.
away.
And the poor diver, we tried to explain that we wanted to pay him a little bit so he could get his bumper straightened out, but the policeman said, no, okay, go away. So,
what message do you want to leave for the future?
That I'm old, but I wish all the best for the kids and hope they will have a kind future. And, especially the way the world looks now, I'm sure hoping they can get it straightened out better than we could. And as I said, I'm a little sorry that I didn't get to spend more time with the kids, but it looks like they're doing very well, and so I hope they'll have no problems.
You did a good job, and you're going to continue to inspire them.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, and inspire us too. You're our uncle.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
So,
I hope so.
Jeg gik mig at spacere en sildig aftenstund. Der mødte jeg en kæmpe så hæselig og grum. Hans tale den var hård og sinde. Jeg tykkes at han mig vil overvinde. Og hør nu, Svend Nordmand, hvad jeg vil sige dig. 10 spørgsmål skal du nu besvare mig. Og enten vil du døden modtage, eller det vil gå dig vel i dine dage.